My own brother stole my work, sabotaged my career, and thought he'd get away with it. He was so wrong. Even successful people get cheated on. My brother Marcus laughed while drinking the expensive whiskey I'd just bought him. Everyone at the table laughed along with him. My parents, his fiancée Elena, even my cousins who joined us for what was supposed to be a celebration of my promotion. I'd just made partner at one of the most prestigious architectural firms in Boston at 32. Something Marcus, at 35, hadn't achieved at his law firm despite having 3 more years in the field than me. I didn't argue. I just smiled politely and paid the $800 dinner bill. Looking back, I should have seen the signs scattered throughout the past year. Marcus's increasingly pointed comments, the way he'd undermine my achievements in front of our family, how he'd mysteriously know about professional opportunities one was pursuing before I mentioned them to anyone. But when you've grown up trusting someone your entire life, you develop a dangerous blind spot. I'm Ethan Parker, and this is the story of how my own brother betrayed me in ways I couldn't have imagined, and how I eventually made him regret ever underestimating me. The real beginning of this mess wasn't at that dinner. It was a week later when I received a cryptic email from Janet, my firm's head of IT security. Ethan, we need to talk. Something concerning has come up during our routine security audit. Please come to my office at your earliest convenience. It's sensitive. I've been working on the Henderson Museum project, a $40 million renovation that could cement my reputation in the industry. My designs had been selected over senior partners, and the client loved my vision. The project was set to break ground in 3 months. When I walked into Janet's office, her usual friendly demeanor was replaced with something grave. Someone's been accessing your work accounts from an unauthorized location, she said, turning her monitor toward me. For the past 8 months, actually. I stared at the screen showing login timestamps, IP addresses, and file access logs. They viewed everything: emails, project files, client communications. Your entire digital footprint at the firm. My stomach dropped. Can you trace the location? Janet nodded. That's why I called you in privately first. It's coming from your brother's law firm. I felt like I'd been punched. There must be some mistake. The access pattern is consistent. Whoever it is logs in during lunch hours or after 7 p.m. They've downloaded your Henderson Museum designs multiple times, especially the innovation sections that won the bid. That's not possible. Marcus wouldn't. But even as I said it, pieces started falling into place. Marcus had recently landed a major client, a development company specializing in cultural institutions. He bragged about it at family dinner last month, mentioning how his client was revolutionizing museum spaces with innovative architectural approaches. My innovative architectural approaches. Janet slid a folder across her desk. There's more. We found evidence that someone's been forwarding your emails to an external account. I flipped through the printouts, my hands shaking. Emails discussing strategy, client preferences, budget constraints, all confidential information that could give a competing firm a significant advantage. I need time to process this, I said finally. Janet nodded sympathetically. Take whatever time you need. But Ethan, the firm needs to take action. This is a serious security breach. I drove straight to Marcus's firm. We'd always been competitive, but this crossed every line of professional ethics and family loyalty. I needed to hear him deny it, to have some explanation that would make sense of what looked like a calculated betrayal. The receptionist at Caldwell and Winters seemed surprised to see me. Mr. Parker, your brother just left for court. He should be back around 4. I'll wait in his office, I said, already walking toward the hallway. I don't think, she started, but I was already gone. Marcus's corner office spoke of his success, modern furniture, city views, law degrees prominently displayed. I sat in his visitor chair, noticing the Henderson Museum mock-up sitting on his credenza. My Henderson Museum mock-up. I picked it up, examining it. This wasn't a copy. It was the actual presentation model I'd created 3 months ago, the one I thought I'd accidentally left at my parents' house during Sunday dinner. His computer was locked, but his tablet sat charging on the desk. I hesitated only briefly before picking it up. The screen lit up, no password required. Overconfidence had always been Marcus's weakness. 2 hours and dozens of documents later, I had my answer. My brother hadn't just stolen my designs. He'd been systematically undermining me professionally for over a year. Email threads with his client showed him presenting my designs as collaborative work between our firms. Calendar entries revealed meetings with my clients where he'd introduced doubts about my experience level. Most damning was a folder labeled Ethan's Accounts containing all my passwords, security questions, and access details. The tablet also contained personal information, screenshots of my dating profile, bank statements, even therapy session notes I'd kept in a password-protected journal app. As I scrolled through the evidence of my brother's betrayal, I found a draft email to Elena, his fiancée. Ethan's Henderson design will clinch the Westridge deal. Their CEO already thinks it's ours, just needs final adjustments to remove identifying markers. Once announced, promotion to senior partner guaranteed. Finally showing my parents which son they should be proud of. I was still staring at those words when the office door opened. What the hell are you doing in my office? Marcus demanded, his confident facade faltering when he saw what I was holding. I looked up at my brother, the person I'd shared a childhood with, who'd taught me to ride a bike, who'd helped me move into my first apartment. The same person who'd been systematically trying to destroy my career. How long? I asked quietly. Ethan, you don't understand. How long? Marcus loosened his tie, suddenly looking less like the polished attorney and more like a cornered animal. It started small. I just needed to know what you were working on. Because Mom and Dad were talking about me too much? Because I made partner before you? My voice remained eerily calm, even as rage built inside me. You've always had everything handed to you, he spat. The golden child. Perfect Ethan with his perfect grades and perfect career. I laughed, a hollow sound that seemed to unnerve him. I worked 70-hour weeks for years. I earned every success while you were busy cutting corners. It's just business, Marcus said dismissively. Everyone uses whatever advantage. This is illegal, I interrupted. Corporate espionage. Identity theft. Fraud. His face paled. You wouldn't report your own brother. I stood up slowly. The Ethan you knew wouldn't. But that Ethan believed his brother had basic human decency. I walked to the door, turning back one last time. You have until tomorrow morning to tell your firm and your clients what you've done. If you don't, I will. You'll destroy me, he whispered. No, Marcus. You did that yourself. As I walked out of his office, my phone buzzed with a text from my mother. Don't forget dinner tomorrow night. Marcus has big news to share. I could only imagine what that big news would be. The Westridge deal, no doubt. Stolen directly from my hard work. That night, alone in my apartment, I made a decision. I wouldn't just expose Marcus. I would make sure he understood exactly what it felt like to have everything you've worked for systematically dismantled by someone you trusted. I took a deep breath, picked up my phone, and started making calls. The first was to Diana Westridge, CEO of Westridge Development. Ms. Westridge? This is Ethan Parker. We need to talk about the museum designs you've been shown. And about my brother. Family dinner the next evening felt like walking into a theater performance where I was the only one who hadn't received the script. My parents' suburban home looked the same as always, immaculate furnishings, family photos chronicling our perfect childhood, the dining table set with the good china reserved for special occasions. My mother hugged me at the door. Ethan, you're early. Marcus and Elena aren't here yet. Perfect, I said, forcing a smile. I need to talk to you and Dad first. Mom's expression shifted to concern. Is everything all right, sweetheart? Let's sit down. In the living room, my father looked up from his newspaper. At 65, Richard Parker still maintained the commanding presence that had served him well as a judge. Son, he nodded, folding his paper. Your mother tells me you have something to discuss. I took a deep breath. Before Marcus arrives, you both need to know something. He's been accessing my work accounts, stealing my designs, and sabotaging my client relationships. The silence that followed was deafening. Mom recovered first. Ethan, that's a very serious accusation. Are you sure you're not just misinterpreting things? I finished for her. No, I'm not. I have proof. I opened my laptop and showed them the security logs, the emails, the calendar appointments, all the evidence I'd gathered. My father's expression darkened with each document. This isn't just unethical. It's criminal. I know, I said quietly. And there's more. The big news he's planning to share tonight? It's about landing the Westridge account, using my stolen designs for the Henderson Museum. Mom's hand flew to her mouth. But that's your project. The one you've been working on for months. It was, I confirmed. Until Marcus presented it as his firm's work. Dad stood abruptly, pacing the room. I don't understand. Why would he do this? He's already successful. Is he? I challenged. Or has he just been good at appearing successful? Did either of you know his firm passed him over for senior partner twice? Their shocked expressions confirmed my suspicion. Marcus had been maintaining an illusion of success, covering his professional disappointments while undermining my actual achievements. What are you going to do? Mom asked, her voice small. I checked my watch. I already did it. I spoke with Diana Westridge this morning, showed her the original designs with timestamps. Then I called the managing partner at Marcus's firm. The doorbell rang, cutting our conversation short. Through the front window, I could see Marcus and Elena standing on the porch. He was smiling, champagne bottle in hand, completely unaware that his carefully constructed house of cards was about to collapse. Don't say anything, I told my parents. Let's see what story he's planning to tell. Mom hesitated, conflict evident in her eyes. Dad placed a hand on her shoulder. Ethan deserves to hear it directly from Marcus, he said firmly. When Marcus entered, his confidence was palpable. Elena glowed beside him, elegant in a blue dress that complemented the diamond tennis bracelet I recognized as new. Sorry we're late, Marcus announced. Had to pick up the good champagne. We're celebrating. Mom's smile looked strained as she accepted the bottle. How wonderful. What's the occasion? Marcus put his arm around Elena proudly. I landed the Westridge account today. Biggest cultural development deal in the city's history. I watched him carefully, searching for any sign of remorse or hesitation. There was none. My brother, the person I'd looked up to growing up, was standing in our parents' living room, boldly claiming credit for my work without a flicker of shame. Congratulations, I said evenly. That's quite an achievement. Marcus shot me a warning glance before continuing. Diana Westridge personally called to say our design concept for the museum renovation was revolutionary. The firm's making the announcement tomorrow, but... He paused dramatically. They're also naming me senior partner. Elena squeezed his arm adoringly. I'm so proud of him. He's been working nights and weekends on this pitch for months. I couldn't help but laugh. A short, involuntary sound that drew everyone's attention. Something funny, Ethan? Marcus asked, irritation creeping into his voice. Just admiring your dedication, I replied. Accessing my accounts during lunch breaks and after hours must have been time-consuming. The color drained from Marcus's face. What are you talking about? I pulled out my phone. Should we call Diana Westridge right now? I'm sure she'd love to clarify which Parker brother she actually met with this morning. Elena looked between us, confusion clouding her features. Marcus? What's going on? Nothing, he said quickly. Ethan's just jealous. He's always been competitive. Stop lying. My father interrupted, his judicial voice cutting through the room. We've seen the evidence. Marcus's facade cracked. He turned to me, eyes blazing. You had no right to go behind my back. That's rich coming from you. I countered. How long have you been accessing my accounts? 8 months. A year. Elena stepped away from Marcus. What is he talking about? I faced her directly. Did you know the designs Marcus presented to Westridge were stolen from my firm? From my personal files? That's not. Marcus began, but Elena cut him off. Is it true? She demanded. Did you steal your brother's work? The mask finally slipped completely. It's not stealing when it's family. Marcus snapped, his true nature emerging. Ethan's always been the favorite. Perfect grades, perfect career, everyone's golden boy. One time, I needed to win, and he can't even let me have that. My mother gasped. Marcus, how could you think that way? We've always been proud of both of you. Really, he challenged. When Ethan made partner, you threw a party. When I won the Hansen case, the biggest of my career, Dad asked if I'd seen Ethan's write-up in Architectural Digest. The raw hurt in his voice would have moved me once. Now it just confirmed what I'd begun to suspect. Marcus's betrayal wasn't just professional opportunism. It was personal, rooted in a jealousy that had apparently festered for years. So you decided to sabotage me? I asked quietly. Access my private accounts? Forward my emails to competitors? That bracelet Elena's wearing, was that purchased with the advance from my stolen designs? Elena looked down at her wrist in horror, then back at Marcus. Tell me this isn't true. When he didn't immediately deny it, she backed away further. I need some air, she murmured, heading for the door. Elena, wait, Marcus called after her, but she was already gone. He rounded on me. Are you happy now? You've ruined everything? No, Marcus. You did that all on your own. My father stood up, his expression grave. You need to leave, Marcus. We'll discuss the legal ramifications of your actions tomorrow. Legal? Dad, you can't be serious. It's me, your son. So is Ethan, my mother said quietly. The son you were willing to destroy. Marcus looked between them, disbelief etched on his face. You're taking his side? After everything I've accomplished. What exactly have you accomplished? I asked. Besides identity theft and corporate espionage? He grabbed his keys from the side table. This isn't over, Ethan. You think you've won? You have no idea what I'm capable of. The threat hung in the air as he stormed out, the door slamming behind him. My parents sat in stunned silence. The perfect family dinner was shattered, along with the illusion that we were ever a perfect family to begin with. I'm sorry, I said finally. I know this isn't what you wanted to hear. Dad shook his head. Don't apologize. We should have seen this coming. The signs were there. His competitiveness, the resentment. We just chose not to see them. Mom wiped away tears. What happens now? Professionally, Marcus will likely face an ethics investigation, possibly disbarment. Criminally, that depends on whether my firm decides to press charges. And personally? Mom asked, her voice breaking. I had no answer for that. The brother I thought I knew no longer existed, perhaps never had. In his place was someone consumed by jealousy, capable of betraying not just professional ethics, but the most fundamental bonds of family. My phone buzzed with a text from Janet. Partners emergency meeting tomorrow 7 a.m. Breach worse than initially thought. Multiple projects compromised. As the implications sank in, I realized this was just the beginning. Marcus's parting words echoed in my mind. You have no idea what I'm capable of. I was about to find out. I arrived at the firm at 6:30 a.m., before anyone else. I needed time alone in my office to center myself before facing the partners. What should have been a triumphant period in my career, making partner, leading the Henderson project, had become a nightmare of betrayal and damage control. The office was eerily quiet as I stepped off the elevator. I'd always loved this time of morning in the building, the calm before the creative energy of 60 architects and designers filled the space. Today, that peace felt ominous. I unlocked my office door and froze. Someone had been here. My normally immaculate desk was in disarray. Design models were knocked over, drawers left partially open. My computer monitor was on. I always shut it down before leaving. I approached cautiously, surveying the damage. My Henderson project files had been pulled from the cabinet, pages strewn across the floor. The signature blue presentation boards were missing entirely. The computer showed multiple failed login attempts before a successful one at 2:17 a.m. He'd used my emergency password, the one only family would know. Marcus had been here. I immediately called security. Within minutes, a guard arrived, followed shortly by Janet from IT. He bypassed building security using a visitor pass issued last month. The guard explained, checking the entry logs. Signed in as a cleaner. Janet was already examining my computer. He tried accessing the server, but couldn't get past the secondary authentication. However, she clicked through several screens, her expression growing grimmer. He did manage to attach something to the system. What do you mean something? I asked. Malware. Sophisticated stuff. It was programmed to corrupt specific file directories, particularly anything related to the Henderson project and your other major accounts. My blood ran cold. Did it succeed? Partially. We have backups, but the most recent versions of some files may be compromised. We'll need to do a full security sweep. By the time the partners arrived for the 7 a.m. meeting, we had a preliminary assessment of the damage. Marcus had attempted a scorched earth approach. If he couldn't have my work, he'd try to destroy it. The conference room filled with concerned faces. Howard Bennett, founding partner and my mentor, called the meeting to order. As you've all been informed, we've experienced a serious security breach targeting Ethan's projects. Before we discuss remediation, Ethan has something to share about the source of the breach. All eyes turned to me. I'd prepared for this moment, but actually speaking the words aloud felt surreal. The person responsible is my brother, Marcus Parker. He's an attorney at Caldwell and Winters. For approximately 8 months, he's been accessing my accounts, copying designs, and forwarding confidential information. Last night, after being confronted, he attempted to destroy project files. Shocked murmurs filled the room. Why would your own brother do this? Anita Sharma, head of the commercial division, asked. I hesitated, not wanting to air family dysfunction in a professional setting, but transparency was necessary. Professional jealousy, primarily. He was using my work to advance his own career, presenting our designs to his clients as collaborative projects between our firms. Howard leaned forward. Ethan, I need to ask, did you have any knowledge of or involvement in this breach? The question stung, but I understood its necessity. Absolutely not. I discovered it yesterday through our security audit. I immediately took steps to address it, including contacting affected clients directly. About that, Howard continued. Diana Westridge called me last night. She was disturbed by the situation. My stomach tightened. Diana Westridge controlled the $40 million Henderson account, my biggest project? She's concerned about confidentiality, Howard explained. Understandably, learning that her project designs were compromised has made her question our security protocols. Is she pulling the project? I asked directly. Not yet. But she's requested a meeting with all partners to discuss safeguards moving forward, and to determine whether the project needs new leadership. The implication was clear. I might lose the Henderson project because of Marcus's actions. Janet stepped in. If I may, our investigation shows Ethan was specifically targeted through social engineering tactics. The breach wasn't due to negligence on his part, but rather the exploitation of personal trust. Howard nodded thoughtfully. Nevertheless, we need to address client concerns. Ethan, you'll join us for the Westridge meeting, but you'll understand if we ask you to recuse yourself from certain discussions. I swallowed my frustration. Of course. The meeting continued with discussion of security measures and client communication strategies. Throughout, I felt the weight of unspoken questions. How could you not know? How could you let this happen? After the meeting, Howard asked me to stay behind. I've known you since you were an intern, Ethan, he said once we were alone. I've watched you grow into one of our most promising architects. This situation. He shook his head. It's unprecedented. I know. I'm still processing it myself. Family betrayal cuts deeper than any other kind, he observed. Have you considered pressing charges? The question had been haunting me. I'm consulting with legal counsel this afternoon. But honestly, I'm more concerned about saving my projects and my reputation right now. Howard nodded. Understandable. Just know that whatever you decide, the firm will support you. He paused. That said, there's something else we need to discuss. Your brother didn't just target Henderson. My chest tightened. What do you mean? The malware was more strategic than we initially thought. It specifically targeted the lakefront development, the project you're competing for against Caldwell and Winters' architectural partner. Realization dawned. Marcus was trying to sabotage our bid to help his firm win the contract. Exactly. The bid deadline is Friday. Thanks to our backup systems, we haven't lost the core designs, but the presentation materials were corrupted. You'll need to rebuild them. 3 days to recreate 6 weeks of work, I said, doing the mental calculation. Howard's expression was sympathetic but firm. I can assign additional resources, but you'll need to lead it. If we miss this deadline or submit subpar work. I know. It would validate every doubt the Westridge situation has created. I stood up, determination replacing shock. I'll get it done. Back in my office, I began reorganizing, mentally prioritizing the mountain of work ahead. My phone had been buzzing consistently, missed calls from my parents, from Elena, even from Marcus himself. Finally, I answered a call from an unknown number. Ethan Parker. My voice sounded tired even to my own ears. Mr. Parker, this is Detective Sophia Richardson, Boston PD. I'm calling regarding the break-in at Bennett Architectural reported this morning. I straightened. Yes, I'm the primary victim. We've reviewed the security footage. The perpetrator has been identified as Marcus Parker. I understand he's your brother. Yes. Given the relationship, I wanted to speak with you directly before proceeding. We have enough evidence for charges of breaking and entering, criminal mischief, and computer crimes. However, corporate espionage and identity theft investigations would require your formal cooperation. The moment of decision had arrived sooner than expected. Pressing charges would irrevocably sever whatever remained of our relationship. Not pressing charges might signal weakness, inviting further attacks. Mr. Parker, are you still there? I thought about Marcus's parting words. You have no idea what I'm capable of, and the subsequent attack on my work. I'd like to proceed with all appropriate charges, I said finally. And detective, you should know he may have accomplices at his law firm. The stolen information benefited them directly. After ending the call, I noticed a text from Elena. Need to talk to you. It's important. Coffee at Arlington Street Cafe at 4. I hesitated before responding. Elena had always been kind to me, genuinely so, not just as my brother's fiancée. But meeting her felt like stepping back into the family drama when I needed to focus on saving my career. Still, she might have information about Marcus's plans or accomplices. I'll be there, I texted back. The rest of the day passed in a blur of damage assessment and reconstruction. By late afternoon, I had a clearer picture of what we'd lost and what could be salvaged. The team worked seamlessly, rallying around the crisis with determination that moved me. At 3:45, I headed to the cafe, unsure what to expect. Elena was already there, seated in a corner booth, looking exhausted. The diamond bracelet was conspicuously absent. Thank you for coming, she said as I sat down. I wasn't sure you would. Honestly, I wasn't sure either. She pushed a manila envelope across the table. You need to see these. I found them in Marcus's home office last night after I left your parents' house. Inside were dozens of documents, printed emails, financial statements, and what appeared to be a detailed timeline of my professional activities dating back 18 months. He's been planning this for a long time, Elena said quietly. It wasn't just opportunity or jealousy. It was methodical. I flipped through the pages, a chill settling over me. Marcus had documented my client meetings, social events, even dates, creating a comprehensive map of my professional and personal vulnerabilities. There's more, Elena continued. He wasn't working alone. She pointed to several email exchanges with a name I recognized immediately, James Wheeler, a senior partner at Marcus's firm who specialized in development contracts. Wheeler has been guiding him, providing technical support for the hacking, introducing him to clients who could benefit from your work. They were planning to establish a new architectural division within the firm, with Marcus leading it. I looked up from the documents. Why are you showing me this? Elena's eyes filled with tears. Because this isn't the man I agreed to marry. Because what he did to you was unforgivable. And because, she hesitated, I think I've been unknowingly complicit. What do you mean? Those weekend conferences I thought he was attending? He was meeting with your clients. That work laptop I helped him set up? It had spyware installed to track your accounts. Her hands shook slightly as she continued. I'm a cybersecurity consultant, Ethan. I should have noticed the signs. Instead, I helped him, unknowingly, but still. The irony was almost too perfect. Does he know you've discovered this? No. I told him I was staying with my sister to think things through. He thinks I'm just upset about the ethics violation, not that I've found his entire operation. I studied her face, looking for deception but finding only distress. Why come to me instead of going to the police? Because you deserve to know the full scope of the betrayal. And because. She took a deep breath. The police already contacted me this morning. I need to know what you're planning to do. I've authorized them to pursue all charges, I said, watching her reaction carefully. Relief, not anguish, crossed her features. Good. I'll cooperate fully with their investigation. Even against your fiancé? Ex-fiancé, she corrected. I left the ring on his desk with a note. Some lines can't be uncrossed, Ethan. What he did to you, his own brother, shows a fundamental lack of character I can't ignore. As Elena shared more details about Marcus's operation, a clearer picture emerged. My brother's betrayal wasn't just about stealing my work. It was about systematically dismantling my career while using my success to build his own. There's something else you should know, Elena said, lowering her voice. Marcus has been recording your parents' conversations for months. He has leverage on your father, something about a case from years ago. My father had been a judge for decades before retiring. His reputation was impeccable. What kind of leverage? I don't know specifics, but he mentioned using it if they sided with you. The revelation added a new dimension to the threat. Marcus wasn't just coming after me. He was prepared to destroy our parents if they stood in his way. As we parted, Elena handed me a flash drive. Everything I found is copied here, including communications with Wheeler and others at the firm. Use it however you need to. I studied her, still uncertain whether to completely trust her motives. Why are you really doing this, Elena? She met my gaze directly. Because for 3 years, I thought I was marrying into a family with strong values. Your parents welcomed me, and you were always kind despite the competition between you and Marcus. I won't let him corrupt what little integrity remains in this situation. After she left, I sat alone, turning the flash drive over in my hands. The cafe continued its normal afternoon bustle around me. People living ordinary lives, untouched by betrayal. My phone rang, Detective Richardson again. Mr. Parker, we've apprehended your brother attempting to access your parents' home. They filed a restraining order. He's being processed now, but he's demanding to speak with you. What did he say? His exact words were, "Tell Ethan this is his last chance to stop this before I burn everything to the ground." The detective paused. Given the escalating nature of his threats, we're taking this very seriously. I'd advise you to be cautious and consider additional security measures. I thanked her and ended the call, a strange calm settling over me. Marcus had shown me exactly who he was and what he was capable of. Now it was time to show him the same. I pulled out my phone and dialed Howard's number. "I need to move up the Westridge meeting," I told him when he answered. "And I want to bring in James Wheeler from Caldwell and Winters." "Wheeler? Why?" "Because he's been orchestrating this whole operation. And I think it's time we had a very public conversation about exactly why my brother thought he could get away with stealing my work." The police station smelled like bad coffee and industrial cleaner. I'd been waiting in the interview room for 20 minutes, wondering if coming here was a mistake. Marcus had been arrested trying to break into our parents' house. Another escalation in his increasingly erratic behavior. Detective Richardson entered, carrying a folder. "Thank you for coming, Mr. Parker. Your brother has been processed, but continues to demand to speak with you before giving any statement." What exactly happened at my parents' house? She consulted her notes. According to their statement, Marcus Parker arrived intoxicated around 9 p.m., demanding access to your father's home office. When they refused, he attempted to force entry through a back door. Your father called 911. I rubbed my temples, trying to process this latest development. Has he said why he wanted access to the office? Something about family documents he claimed belonged to him. Your father was quite clear that no such documents exist. My mind immediately went to what Elena had mentioned, leverage against my father from an old case. Was Marcus looking for something specific, or simply escalating his intimidation tactics? I'll speak with him, I decided. But I want it recorded, and I want you present. Detective Richardson nodded. Of course. He's being held in interview room 3. Just so you're prepared, he's not in a good state. That was an understatement. When I entered the room, Marcus barely resembled the polished attorney I'd confronted in his office days earlier. His expensive suit was rumpled, his eyes bloodshot, his normally perfect hair disheveled. Finally, he spat when he saw me. The golden boy arrives. I sat across from him, maintaining a calm exterior despite the churning in my stomach. "You wanted to speak with me. I'm here. Called the cops on me. Had me arrested. Your own brother." His words slurred slightly. He was still intoxicated. "You broke into my office and tried to destroy my work. Then you tried breaking into our parents' house. What did you expect?" Marcus leaned forward, lowering his voice. "You have no idea what you've started, Ethan. No clue what's really happening. Then enlighten me." He laughed, a hollow, unsettling sound. "You think this is just about your precious designs? Your little architectural achievements? This is bigger than you. Is it about Wheeler?" I asked, watching his reaction carefully. "About the architectural division you were planning to establish at Caldwell and Winters?" A flicker of surprise crossed his face. "Elena," he realized. "She showed you my files. She did the right thing. Unlike you." Marcus's expression darkened. "She'll regret that betrayal. Just like you'll regret not taking my offer to walk away." Is that what this conversation is? Another threat. "It's an opportunity, your last one. Drop the charges. Tell your firm to back off. In return, I'll keep Dad's secret buried where it belongs." I maintained eye contact, refusing to show the unease his words created. "What exactly do you think you have on Dad?" "The Rossi case, 2004. Dad buried evidence that would have exonerated the defendant. I have proof, recordings, documents. If this continues, I'll release everything. His reputation, his pension, possibly even his freedom, gone." I studied my brother, looking for tells that he was bluffing. There were none. "Even if that were true," I continued, keeping my voice steady, "do you really think threatening our father is going to make me back down? You've already crossed every line imaginable, Marcus. This just proves how far you're willing to go to protect yourself." Marcus smirked, leaning back in his chair. "You always were the idealist, Ethan. Always thought you could fix everything with your perfect little moral compass. But this isn't about right or wrong. It's about survival. And if you don't back off, I'll take everyone down with me. Dad, Mom, your career, your precious firm, everything." Detective Richardson, who had been silently observing, finally spoke up. "Mr. Parker, I'd advise you to think carefully about your next words. Threatening family members and making baseless accusations won't help your case." Marcus shot her a glare. "This is a family matter. Stay out of it, It stopped being just a family matter when you broke into your brother's office and attempted to sabotage his work, she replied coolly. And now you're implicating your father in a criminal conspiracy. If you have evidence, we'll need to see it. Marcus's smirk faltered, but he quickly recovered. You think I'd be stupid enough to bring it here? No, this is my insurance policy. And if Ethan doesn't drop the charges, I'll use it. I leaned forward, my voice low but firm. Marcus, you're not thinking clearly. You're drunk, desperate, and making threats you can't back up. If you really have something on Dad, it's not going to save you. It's just going to drag him down with you. Is that what you want? To destroy our family completely? For a moment, his bravado wavered. I saw a flicker of doubt in his eyes, but it was quickly replaced by anger. You don't get it, Ethan. This isn't about family. This is about power. And I'm not going to let you take that away from me. I stood up, done with the conversation. You've made your position clear. But so have I. I'm not dropping the charges, and I'm not letting you intimidate me or our parents. If you want to keep digging this hole, that's on you. But don't expect me to stand by and watch you destroy everything we've built. As I turned to leave, Marcus slammed his hand on the table. You're making a mistake, Ethan. You have no idea what I'm capable of. I paused at the door, looking back at him one last time. Neither do you, Marcus. Neither do you. The next morning, I arrived at the firm early again, this time to prepare for the Westridge meeting. Howard had agreed to move it up, and James Wheeler from Caldwell and Winters had been invited under the guise of discussing a potential collaboration. In reality, we were setting a trap. Elena's flash drive had provided everything we needed: emails, financial records, and even recorded conversations between Marcus and Wheeler detailing their plan to steal my work and sabotage my career. It was damning evidence, and we planned to present it to Diana Westridge and the other partners in a way that would leave no doubt about who was behind the breach. As I reviewed the presentation one last time, my phone buzzed with a text from Detective Richardson. Marcus has been formally charged with breaking and entering, criminal mischief, and computer crimes. We're pursuing additional charges based on the evidence you provided. Keep me updated on any developments. I replied with a quick thank you and turned my attention back to the meeting. This was my chance to not only clear my name, but also expose the full extent of Marcus and Wheeler's scheme. The conference room filled quickly, with Diana Westridge and her team arriving precisely at 9 a.m. James Wheeler followed shortly after, looking confident and completely unaware of what was about to happen. Howard opened the meeting with a brief overview of the situation, emphasizing the firm's commitment to security and transparency. Then he turned the floor over to me. Thank you all for being here, I began, projecting my slides onto the screen. As you know, we recently discovered a serious security breach targeting my projects. What you don't know is the full extent of the damage and the people responsible. I clicked to the next slide, showing a timeline of Marcus's activities. For the past 8 months, my brother, Marcus Parker, has been accessing my accounts, stealing designs, and forwarding confidential information to his firm, Caldwell and Winters. Last night, after being confronted, he attempted to destroy project files. The room erupted in murmurs, but I pressed on, detailing the evidence we'd gathered. When I reached the part about James Wheeler's involvement, I turned to him directly. Mr. Wheeler, would you care to explain your role in this scheme? Wheeler's face went pale, but he quickly recovered. This is outrageous. I have no idea what you're talking about. I clicked to the next slide, showing an email exchange between him and Marcus. Then perhaps you can explain this? Or this? I continued, displaying more incriminating evidence. Wheeler stood up, his composure cracking. This is a setup. I demand to speak with my attorney. Diana Westridge, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. Mr. Wheeler, I suggest you sit down and listen. If what Mr. Parker is saying is true, you have a lot to answer for. The meeting continued for another hour, with Howard and I presenting the full scope of the breach and its impact on our projects. By the end, Diana Westridge was visibly shaken but also impressed by our transparency and commitment to resolving the issue. I appreciate your honesty, she said, addressing Howard and me. This is a serious breach, but your firm's response has been commendable. I'm willing to move forward with the Henderson project, provided we implement additional security measures. Howard nodded. Of course. We'll do whatever it takes to ensure this never happens again. As the meeting adjourned, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. The immediate crisis was over, but I knew the fallout from Marcus's actions would continue to ripple through my life for some time. Later that afternoon, I received a call from my father. His voice was heavy with emotion. Ethan, I just spoke with Detective Richardson. She told me about Marcus's threats. I need to explain something. I braced myself. What is it, Dad? He took a deep breath. The Rossi case. It's true. I made a mistake, a terrible one. I buried evidence that could have exonerated the defendant. It's haunted me for years, and now Marcus is using it against us. I closed my eyes, processing this revelation. Why didn't you tell me? Because I was ashamed. I thought I could bury it and move on, but now it's coming back to destroy everything. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. Dad, we'll get through this. But we need to come clean, to the police, to everyone. Hiding it will only make things worse. He hesitated. What about Marcus? If we expose this, he'll go to prison. And if we don't, he'll keep using it to manipulate us. We can't let him control our lives, Dad. We have to do the right thing, no matter how hard it is. There was a long pause before he finally spoke. You're right. I'll call Detective Richardson and arrange to meet with her. Thank you, Ethan, for being the son I can always count on. As I hung up the phone, I felt a mix of emotions, anger, sadness, but also a strange sense of clarity. Marcus's betrayal had forced us to confront truths we'd been avoiding for years. And while the road ahead would be difficult, I knew we'd face it together, as a family. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of legal proceedings, media attention, and personal reflection. Marcus was formally charged with multiple crimes, and James Wheeler's involvement was exposed, leading to his disbarment and the collapse of Caldwell and Winter's architectural division. My father cooperated fully with the investigation into the Rossi case, and while it tarnished his reputation, it also brought a sense of closure to the victims' families. He retired quietly, focusing on repairing his relationship with my mother and finding peace with his past. As for me, I threw myself into my work, determined to prove that my success was earned, not stolen. The Henderson Project became a symbol of resilience, and my designs were praised for their innovation and integrity. Elena and I stayed in touch, forming an unlikely friendship born out of shared betrayal. She eventually moved on, starting a new chapter in her life far away from the chaos of the Parker family. And Marcus? He was sentenced to 5 years in prison, a stark fall from grace for someone who had once seemed destined for greatness. I visited him once, not to gloat or seek closure, but to remind him that despite everything, he was still my brother. Whether he chose to change or remain the same was up to him. As I stood outside the prison that day, I realized that betrayal, no matter how painful, had also brought clarity. It had shown me who I could trust, what I was capable of, and what truly mattered in life. And for that, I was grateful.